In this video, your challenge is going to be to go through the entire development lifecycle, from having an idea to deploying it. You're going to create the code locally, you'll be testing it locally, then you're going to make a commit, push it up to GitHub, and finally deploy it to Heroku where it'll be visible live on the web. That is the entire process I want you to run through. Now, whether you're using GitHub and Heroku or other services, the process is still really similar. So it's a good idea to get comfortable going through this process early on, as it's something you'll be doing when you're adding new features. Your challenge is going to be to add a new projects page to our website. This page is a place where later on you can link to your GitHub projects. That means you're going to need to register a new URL down below, and we're going to be rendering a handlebars template. You have to create the URL. It's going to be /projects. You'll also need to make that view file. And in the view file, kind of like we do for home and about, I want you to render everything, including the header and the footer. And inside of the actual website, you can just render a message like portfolio page here. Inside of the partials header file, I also want you to add a new link for the new projects page. So when you're on the home page, you can go to projects, and when you're on the projects page, you can go to home or about, wherever you like. Now, once you're done and you have tested this locally, meaning you've opened it up on localhost 3000 and you can see the projects page, you're ready to make that commit. Go ahead and make the commit, then push it up to GitHub. The last step in the process is going to be to push it up to that Heroku remote using git push Heroku, which is going to deploy it live to the web. Once you're done, you can open up your app inside of the browser, and I want you to check to make sure the projects page shows up as expected. We've gone through all these steps before, but take your time. There is no rush. Once you have things ready, you can go ahead and click play. How'd it go? Hopefully, you were able to go through that entire process without too much trouble. We're going to get started by creating the local changes. That means I'm going to register a new URL right here using app.get. We're going to create a new page /projects, which is why I have that as the route for my HTTP GET handler. Inside of the second argument, we can specify our callback function, which will get called with request and response. And like we do for the other routes above, the root route and our about route, we're going to be calling response.render to render our template. Inside of the render arguments list, we're going to provide two. The first one will be the file name. The file doesn't exist, but we can still go ahead and call render. I'm going to call it projects.hbs. Then we can specify the options we want to pass to the template. In this case, we're just going to set page title, setting it equal to projects with a capital P. Excellent. Now with this in place, the server file is all done. There's no more changes there. What I am going to do is go ahead and go to the views directory, creating a new file called projects.hbs. In here, we'll be able to configure our template. To kick things off, I'm going to copy the template from the about page since it's really similar. I'll copy it, close about, paste it into projects, and I'm just going to change this text to project page text would go here. Then we can save the file and make our last change. And the last thing we want to do is update the header. We now have a brand new projects page that lives at /projects, so we're going to want to go ahead and add that to the header links list. Right here, I'm going to create a new paragraph tag. And then I'm going to make an anchor tag. The text for the link will be projects with a capital P. And the href, which is the URL to visit when that link is clicked, we're going to set that equal to /projects, just like we do for about, where we set it equal to /about. Now that we have this in place, all of our changes are done and we are ready to test things out locally. I'm going to fire up the app locally using Node with server.js as the file to start. We're up on localhost 3000, so over in the browser, I can move to the localhost tab as opposed to the Heroku app tab and click refresh. Right here, we have home, which goes to home. We have about, which goes to about, and we have projects, which does indeed go to /projects, rendering the projects page. Project page text would go here. With this in place, we're now done locally. We have the changes, we've tested them. Now it's time to go ahead and make that commit. That's going to happen over inside of the terminal. I'm going to shut down the server and run git status. This is going to show me all of the changes to my repository as of the last commit. I have 2 modified files, the server file and the header file, and I have my brand new projects file. All of this looks great. I want to add all of this to the next commit, so I can use git add with the dot to do just that. Now, before I actually make the commit, I do like to test that the proper things got added by running git status. Right here, I can see my changes to be committed are showing up in green. Everything looks great. Next up, we're going to run git commit to actually make the commit. This is going to save all of the changes into the Git repository. A message for this one would be something like add project page. With a commit made, the next thing you needed to do was push it up to GitHub. This is going to back our code up and let others collaborate on it. I'm going to use git push to do just that. Remember, we can leave off the origin remote as origin is the default remote, so if you leave off a remote, it'll just use that anyways. With our GitHub repository updated, the last thing to do is deploy to Heroku, and we do that by pushing up the Git repository using git push to the Heroku remote. When we do this, we get our long list of logs as the Heroku server goes through the process of installing our NPM modules, building the app, and actually deploying it. Once it's done, we're going to get brought back to the terminal like we are here, and then we can open up the URL in the browser. Now I could copy it from here or run Heroku open. Since I already have a tab open with the URL in place, I'm going to simply give it a refresh. Now, you might have a little delay as you refresh your app. Sometimes starting up the app right after a new app was deployed can take about 10 to 15 seconds. That's only going to happen as you first visit it. Other times where you click the refresh button, it should reload instantly. Now we have the projects page, and if I visit it, everything looks awesome. The nav bar is working great, and the projects page is indeed rendering at /projects. With this in place, we are now done. We've gone through the process of adding a new feature, testing it locally, making a git commit, pushing it up to GitHub, and deploying it to Heroku. We now have a workflow for building real-world web applications using Node.js. This also brings a close to this section. In this section, you learned about Express and how it can be used to easily create websites. We can make a website that returns HTML, or we can make an HTTP URL that returns some JSON data. This is going to let us create all sorts of applications, which we'll be doing throughout the rest of the course. You also learned about Git, GitHub, and Heroku. These are the tools I prefer to use when I'm creating applications. I like to use Git because it's super popular. It's basically the only choice these days. I like to use GitHub because it has a great user interface. It has a ton of awesome features, and pretty much everyone else is using it too. There's a great community. And I like to use Heroku because it is just dead simple to deploy new versions of your application. You can swap out any of these tools with any other tools. You can use websites like Amazon Web Services to host. You could use Bitbucket as your GitHub alternative. These are perfectly fine solutions. All that really matters is you have some tools that are working for you. You have a Git repository backed up somewhere, whether it's GitHub or Bitbucket, and you have an easy way to deploy so you can make changes quickly and get them out to your users fast. That is it for this section. Stay tuned. I will see you next time.